The map of the world you grew up with is a lie, not a small distortion, not a rounding error, an enormous reality-bending lie that has quietly warped how billions of people picture the planet they live on. On that map, Greenland looks roughly the size of Africa. It is not. Africa is 14 times larger than Greenland. On that map, Alaska looks about the same size as Brazil. In reality, Brazil is 5 times bigger. Countries near the top and bottom of the map are bloated to monstrous sizes, while the countries near the middle are shrunk down, made to look small and insignificant. You have been looking at a deceptive picture of your own world your entire life, and the reasons why touch on mathematics, history, power, and a problem so fundamental that no flat map can ever truly solve it. Let's start with the root of the problem, which is beautifully simple and completely unavoidable. The Earth is a sphere. A map is flat. And here's a fact that sounds abstract but changes everything. You cannot flatten the surface of a sphere onto a flat plane without distorting it. It is mathematically impossible. Try it yourself with an orange. Peel it, then try to press the peel flat onto a table. It will tear, stretch, and buckle. There is no way to make it lie perfectly flat without ripping it or warping its shape. The surface of a ball simply does not translate onto a flat sheet. This means every single flat map of the world that has ever existed or ever will exist must distort something. It's not a matter of skill or better technology. It's a law of geometry. Every map is forced to choose what to lie about. So the real question becomes, what does a mapmaker choose to distort, and what do they choose to preserve? Because you can't keep everything accurate, you have to sacrifice something. And the most famous world map, the one that hung in your classroom, made a very specific choice. It was created centuries ago by a mapmaker for a very practical purpose: navigation across the oceans. Its great strength was that it kept directions accurate. A sailor could draw a straight line on this map and follow a constant compass bearing to reach their destination, which was revolutionary and genuinely life-saving for ocean travel. To achieve that navigational magic, the map preserved the shapes of land masses and the accuracy of angles. But it paid for that gift with a terrible price. It wildly distorted size. And the distortion isn't random. It gets more and more extreme the farther you move from the equator, stretching everything near the poles to enormous false proportions. This is why the lie has a direction to it, and this is where it stops being just about math and starts being about power and perception. The lands near the equator which get shrunk on this map include most of Africa, South America, and South Asia. The lands near the top of the map which get inflated include Europe, North America, and Russia. So the map systematically makes the wealthy, historically powerful nations of the North look far larger and more dominant than they actually are, while shrinking the enormous continents of the global South into something that looks smaller and lesser. Africa, in reality, is staggeringly vast. You could fit the United States, China, India, and most of Europe inside the outline of Africa, all at once, with room to spare. But on the classroom map, Africa looks almost modest, while Greenland, a landmass with a tiny fraction of Africa's area, sprawls across the top looking like a giant. Many people have gone their entire lives with a mental picture of the world that dramatically underestimates the true scale of the equatorial continents and inflates the northern ones. Now, it's worth being fair here because this is often framed as a deliberate conspiracy, and the truth is more interesting than that. The mapmaker who created this famous projection wasn't trying to trick anyone about the relative importance of continents. He was solving a navigation problem, and he solved it brilliantly for his time. The size distortion was a mathematical side effect of making a genuinely useful tool for sailors. The map became dominant not because of a plot, but because it was practical. Then it became standard. Then it got printed in textbooks for generations. And once something becomes the default image in millions of minds, it shapes perception whether anyone intended it to or not. The bias in the map is real, but it grew out of usefulness and habit, not a secret scheme. Which is, in a way, more unsettling because it shows how a neutral technical choice can quietly reshape how billions of people see the world, with no villain required. And here's the truly humbling part: there is no perfect replacement. Mapmakers have created many alternative projections over the years, each trying to fix the size problem. Some preserve the true relative sizes of countries beautifully, so Africa finally looks as vast as it really is. But in doing so, they have to distort the shapes, stretching or squashing the continents into forms that look strange and unfamiliar. Others try to balance the errors, spreading the distortion around so no single thing is too wrong, but nothing is perfectly right either. Every solution trades one lie for another. You can have accurate sizes or accurate shapes or accurate directions, but never all of them at once on a flat surface. The only object that gets everything right is a globe, a sphere, the actual three-dimensional shape of the Earth. The moment you flatten it to fit on a page or a screen, you are forced back into the impossible choice, and something must be sacrificed. So what does this really teach us beyond geography? It's a profound lesson about the nature of representation itself. Anytime you take something rich and complex and three-dimensional and try to squash it down into a simpler, flatter form, you lose something and you distort something, and the choices you make about what to preserve reveal your priorities. A map is not the territory. It's a compromise, a set of decisions about what matters most, dressed up as objective truth. And we do this constantly, not just with maps. Every summary, every statistic, every simplified story about a complicated reality is a kind of projection, keeping some things accurate while quietly warping others. The world map is just the most literal, visible example of a truth that runs through all human knowledge, that to represent something is always, unavoidably, to distort it. The next time you look at a world map, look at it differently. Notice how Greenland sprawls across the top. Remember that it could fit into Africa 14 times over. See the northern countries puffed up and the equatorial ones pressed thin, and understand that you're not looking at the world as it is. You're looking at a centuries-old solution to a navigation problem, a mathematical compromise that got frozen into the collective imagination of humanity. The real world, the actual sphere hanging in space, is far stranger, far more balanced, and far more surprising than the flat lie we've all been staring at since childhood. To see it truly, you have to hold a globe, spin it slowly, and let go of the distorted picture that's been sitting in your head your whole life. And if you're fascinated by the ways our tools quietly reshape how we see reality, wait until you hear how the clock, the calendar, and the way we measure time itself are far more arbitrary and strange than you ever imagined. That's the next video. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and thanks for watching.